Stefon Diggs. Wow, talk about forcing your way out of the Bills as he just got traded to the Texans. With this trade, now the Texans now have a wide receiver core of Stefon Diggs, Nico Collins, and Dell. Wow, just wow. This is Sports Guy Talking that you guys are watching and listening to. I am Dustin Tran, your host, as I am here today to talk about Stefon Diggs getting traded from the Bills as they are retooling their roster around Josh Allen. The Bills with this trade now are essentially starting over in terms of building their team around Josh Allen, even though they play in a super competitive AFC East division. As for the Texans, they are going all in on building their offense around CJ Stroud as they are looking to be major contenders in a stacked AFC. Before I say anything else though, I want to present you guys with the topic question. So here it is. Who won the Stefon Diggs trade, Bills or Texans? And this answer is going to surprise nobody because I'm going to choose the common sense answer. Of course, the Houston Texans won the Stefon Diggs trade. Are you kidding me? This was a great trade for the Houston Texans. You want to talk about stacking up weapons for a young quarterback? That's exactly what the Houston Texans just did. And here's the thing with the Houston Texans too. They didn't even have to give up a major draft pick to the Buffalo Bills in the 2024 NFL draft. All the Buffalo Bills got in return was a 2025 second round pick that the Texans acquired from the Vikings in a earlier trade, which means that the Houston Texans just essentially got Stefon Diggs for free. You want to talk about getting a superstar wide receiver one? Well, Stefon Diggs is a superstar wide receiver in the National Football League. I know that his numbers have declined in the last several seasons, but that's because of the fact that he's been getting phased out of the Buffalo Bills offense. And look who the quarterback for the Houston Texans is. It's CJ Stroud, who I believe had the greatest rookie season ever by a professional quarterback in the National Football League, and now his roster just got even better. I said the Houston Texans had some needs to fill out after they lost to the Baltimore Ravens. Well, they filled all those needs right now, and they look like a really good football team. I said the Houston Texans need to get a better running back in the offseason. They did that by trading for Joe Mixon. Speaking of Joe Mixon, all they had to do was give up a 7th round pick, which essentially, who cares for a player like Joe Mixon? Anytime you can get a player like Joe Mixon, of course you're going to take that trade 10 times out of 10. Then of course getting Stefon Diggs, a true number one wide receiver, into the roster also helps as well. I also said the Houston Texans needed a true wide receiver one in order to make them major contenders in the AFC. I did not think Nico Collins was good enough to be a wide receiver one on a Super Bowl contending team. I know some people really love Nico Collins a lot and they think that Nico Collins is a stud, and don't get me wrong, I think Nico Collins is pretty good, but I love Nico Collins more as a wide receiver two rather than a wide receiver one. He's not the guy that can carry an offense whenever your offense is struggling on the football field. Nico Collins is a nice complementary piece, but he's not a guy that's going to carry a franchise on his back. And of course Nico Collins is not even a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL, but Stefon Diggs on the other hand is a top 10 wide receiver in the NFL. I know the stats might not say it, but when you watch the tape, you know that Stefon Diggs, he can draw double teams everywhere where he goes, which means that it's going to open up the field for everybody else. Could you imagine Dell going one-on-one and him being able to use his speed in the slot? He's going to get open a lot. I like what the Houston Texans have done offensively. They've got CJ Stroud, a top 5 quarterback in the National Football League. They've got Joe Mixon, who's one of the better running backs in the National Football League. He's a guy that I believe can be a major upgrade over Devin Singletary. And then of course at wide receiver, you've got Nico Collins, you've got Dell, you've got Stefon Diggs. That's one of the better wide receiver cores in the National Football League because now Dell is a natural born slot receiver, so he's going to fit in quite well at that position. And of course Nico Collins is a nice complementary receiver, which is exactly what you want in a wide receiver too. And of course you've got Stefon Diggs, a guy that can draw double teams anytime he's on the football field, which means he's going to open up opportunities for everybody else. And then of course at tight end, they've got Dalton Schultz, who's a top 10 tight end in the National Football League. I like Dalton Schultz a lot, and I was surprised that so many people were low on Dalton Schultz last year, because I remember last year I took Dalton Schultz in my fantasy draft and some people were saying, why are you taking Dalton Schultz so high? And I said it's because he's going to be a really good tight end one for the Houston Texans. And what happened? He was extremely productive for the organization. And then of course the Houston Texans on defense also need to add another edge rusher because I felt like they needed some help to help out Will Anderson Jr. at the edge rusher position. They did that by adding Danielle Hunter as well. I love every move that the Houston Texans have been making this offseason. Their offensive line is solid. Their receiving core looks even better than it was last year. And of course now they actually got a running game for once. And then of course, who can forget about their offensive coordinator, Bobby Sloak? Bobby Sloak is one of the best play callers in all of football. I've always been very high on Bobby Sloak. I've always considered him a version of Kyle Shanahan. And anytime you get that version of Kyle Shanahan on your roster, that means that you're a really good offensive coordinator. And I'm giving you tremendous compliments as well. I like what the Houston Texans have done a lot offensively. I like what they've done defensively as well. I like that they've already got solid corners. Their linebackers linebackers are solid. Their edge rushers are going to get better compared to last year. And of course, the offensive line is still kind of shaky, but CJ Stroud is going to elevate those guys big time. I'm not too worried about it. And then, of course, like I said, I like the running game that they got now. And of course, the receiving core that they have now is pretty good as well. And it also helps when they have a top 10 tight end in Dalton Schultz. And CJ Stroud right now, man, this guy looks primed to win MVP award this year. Yeah, I said it. CJ Stroud is going to win MVP award this year. And obviously, it's too early to make season predictions or anything like that. But I love what the Houston Texans have been doing this offseason, and their future looks incredibly bright. Not only is their future incredibly bright, their present is incredibly bright as well. Right now, the Houston Texans are at worst the second best team in the AFC. It's not even just because of the offseason acquisitions. It's because of the fact that they already have a top 5 quarterback on the roster on a rookie contract, which means that they can build the rest of the team around the guy successfully, and that he's going to be able to elevate his players on their team as well. And you look at how CJ Stroud has elevated the Houston Texans big time. He turned the Houston Texans from one of the worst organizations in all of football into being a playoff contender overnight. We will never see another CJ Stroud play in the National Football League again, at least for quite some time, because what CJ Stroud did as a rookie was some historic stuff that he did. And of course, CJ Stroud is going to have an even better sophomore year. Can you imagine an offense of Stefon Diggs, Nico Collins, Dell, Dalton Schultz, Joe Mixon? Holy cow, that is certainly an offense to build around a young quarterback. And he was already good to begin with, even without major weapons at wide receiver. But you look at how the Houston Texans have an incredibly bright future on offense and on defense. And of course, you can't forget about DeMeco Ryans as well. DeMeco Ryans is one of the best young coaches in all of football. He's able to provide them with stability and incredible leadership. And of course, he's really good with getting his defense ready to play. The Houston Texans right now just managed to rebuild their team in basically 2 years. And congrats to the Houston Texans for being able to turn around their franchise after being a dumpster fire franchise during the Deshaun Watson era. So obviously, the Houston Texans, it seems like they've got the ship turned around. Obviously, if I had to give them a grade for this trade, I'm giving the Stefon Diggs trade an A. Are you kidding me? That was an awesome trade for the Houston Texans. Who cares if Stefon Diggs is overpaid? Because right now, you're not paying CJ Stroud any major money, so it doesn't matter. They can afford that contract. And if Stefon Diggs acts like a diva in 2 or 3 years, who cares? Because by that time, you can just get rid of Stefon Diggs and you can just pay up CJ Stroud with that money in order to replace Stefon Diggs at the salary cap position. And obviously, if you're the Buffalo Bills, you don't feel too great about the Stefon Diggs trade. Now, I'm not as low on the trade as others are, because it's not exactly like the Buffalo Bills have been using Stefon Diggs in recent seasons, but the Buffalo Bills are definitely not going to be a better football team without Stefon Diggs. You look at how they actually lost money by trading Stefon Diggs away from the team. You look at how Stefon Diggs now created a $31.1 million dead cap hit for the Bills. It would have been a $27.9 million cap hit if Stefon Diggs had not been traded. So obviously the Buffalo Bills, they lose money by getting rid of Stefon Diggs, and it's not a great situation for the Buffalo Bills, but I don't think Stefon Diggs is that important to the Bills compared to some of the other losses that they've had this offseason. You look at how the Buffalo Bills defensively, they lost a lot of pieces. You also look at how they got rid of their starting center, so I'm quite worried about their offensive line as well. And you also look at the fact that their number 1 wide receiver right now is Curtis Samuel, because they also lost Gabe Davis in free agency as well. So if you're the Buffalo Bills, you absolutely have to draft a wide receiver in round 1, and you have to be able to nail that pick down, because if you don't nail that pick down, they are at the risk of wasting Josh Allen's prime on the Buffalo Bills. Obviously, Josh Allen is a good quarterback. I'm not going to say he's a great quarterback anymore, but he's a really good quarterback. Obviously, Josh Allen is one of the better quarterbacks in the National Football League. He's a top 10 quarterback in there. He might even be top 5, and when he's really on, he might be one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League. It's like what a friend once told me about Josh Allen. He's as good as his opponent. What do I mean by that? The better the opponent, the better he plays football. And obviously, Josh Allen is going to have to step up his game this year and become more consistent, but we'll see what happens. But I think this trade for the Buffalo Bills was rather mediocre. I don't think this trade is going to make the Buffalo Bills a significantly worse football team, although it certainly doesn't help them become a better football team. I'm giving this trade a C+ grade for the Buffalo Bills. As far as the real reason why Stefon Diggs was traded to the Houston Texans, it's very simple, because this trade now puts the Houston Texans in Super Bowl contention status. Right now, it seems like the Houston Texans could possibly go to the Super Bowl this year. Yeah, I said it. The Houston Texans could possibly go to the Super Bowl this year with CJ Stroud playing MVP caliber football. That's the real reason Stefon Diggs was traded to the Houston Texans, is to make CJ Stroud's game even better compared to last season. And as for the Buffalo Bills, why they traded away Stefon Diggs, it's because of the fact that Stefon Diggs was unhappy on the Buffalo Bills, and the Bills want to get guys that are all in on being successful for their franchise, and it seems like Stefon Diggs was not willing to do that. Either way, though, it was an absolute good trade for the Houston Texans to make. They obviously won the Stefon Diggs trade. That's not even a real question to me. This is going to be a franchise-altering move for the Houston Texans in a good way. They're going to be able to become major contenders in the AFC sooner rather than later. They might even make it to the Super Bowl this year. So that's why the Texans won the Stefon Diggs trade, as this trade makes their offense look unstoppable unstoppable on paper. Ultimately, it seems like the Texans are going to be one of the best offenses in the NFL next season. Remember, go ahead and subscribe to Sports Guy Talking, like the video, and please comment down below. If you guys do that, I may shout you guys out in my Instagram story every Monday. That'll be for the @Dustin Tran Instagram account. Make sure to follow me on Instagram @Dustin Tran and @Sports Guy Talking. Also, go follow me on Twitter @Dustin Tran. Again, go ahead and do those things that I just told you guys to go do. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the content that was just produced. Peace out. I hope you enjoyed that video. Want more Sports Guy Talking, the home of great sports content? Make sure you click that subscribe button to get the latest from Sports Guy Talking. Go ahead and like the video, comment down below. Check the description box on the video in order to follow my Instagram and Twitter. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from the YouTube channel, Sports Guy Talking.